is my privilege again to welcome you to the Pearl of Africa. I also take pride in welcoming you for the first ever IADI conference to be held in Uganda.
Ladies and gentlemen, as the African Regional Committee of the International Association of Deposit Insurers gathers here today, we need to start drawing regional specific frameworks that will promote development and stability of our financial sector to support our development goals.
In Uganda, the need for effective deposit insurance was exposed during the resolution of several local banks that failed during the late 1990s and early 2000s.
The pockets of bank failures on the continent in recent times show that threats to financial system stability are yet to be fully resolved. Hence, deposit insurance, as part of financial safety net arrangements, will continue to offer protection to depositors and promote stability of the financial system.
Compliance with the core principles has become a key strategic priority for IADI, and our Africa Regional Committee has been leading the charge in that area. Conferences like this, self-assessment programs that IADI is promoting, try to help all our members try to achieve the standards and the core principles.
I would like to once again thank you for coming all the way from your different countries to be in Uganda to participate in this historic event, the first ever deposit insurance related conference to be held in Uganda. I'm sure you've been able to appreciate various aspects of Ugandan culture, the food, the people. I've been saying Ugandans are very warm, are very friendly. That is Uganda.
This is my first time in Uganda and it's been blissful. That's the only way I can explain it. Blissful. People have been so wonderful. I've enjoyed myself for these 5 days.
Honorable Minister, we're just starting. We had a prayer, word of prayer, and the national anthem. So now we are going to have welcome remarks by Mr. Ben Patrick Kagoro, the chairperson, Deposit DPF Board of Directors, Deposit Protection Fund Deposit Protection Fund Board of Directors.
Thank you, Charity. Your deposits are protected, Charity. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope you had a restful night after our dinner, and you are told, or you did what you advised. In the event of stress, you know what to do. And if you get stressed during the seminar, please stand up and do the needful. Nobody will laugh at you. Thank you. Honorable Minister of Finance, Planning and Economic Development, Honorable Matia Kasaija, MP, the Governor Bank of Uganda, Professor Emmanuel Tumusime Mutebile, the representative of the Auditor General present, the Secretary General of International Association of Deposit Insurers, Mr. David Walker, board members of the executive officers of the sister deposit insurance agencies, board members of the chief executive officers of contributing institutions, chief executive officers of financial sector safety players, delegates and central bankers within the African region, delegates from IADI, member countries and associates, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good morning to you all, and welcome to Uganda once again. It is my privilege again to welcome you to the Pearl of Africa. I also take pride in welcoming you for the first ever IADI conference to be held in Uganda, since DPF is a young institution. Thank you very much for coming. The hosting of this conference is a key milestone for the Deposit Protection Fund of Uganda, which was established as a legal entity only 2 years ago. It demonstrates the resolve of the fund to play a key role in contributing not only to the financial stability of Uganda, but to the entire African region. And to this, we give thanks to the Honorable Minister of Finance, the Governor Bank of Uganda, and mainly also through the Executive Director Supervision and the Supervision Department for the foresight and complying with the best international practice in deposit insurance. The conference, whose theme is Why Deposit Insurance, is anchored on IADI Core Principle 2 and 3. These principles address issues related to the mandate and effective governance of deposit insurance entities. They give broad guidance on the different forms of a deposit insurance entity can take and the governance structure which must be in place for a deposit insurance entity to contribute effectively to enhance public confidence in the financial sector. During the course of the conference, jurisdictions with well-established deposit insurance agencies, we will share experiences on how they have contributed to public confidence in the financial sector, which is a prerequisite for financial sector stability, as we'll learn. Countries which are in the process of establishing such entities will be given an opportunity to share their experiences as well. This is intended to encourage other African countries to start the process of establishing such institutions, and is in line with the famous saying that no one lights a lamp and then puts it under a basket. Instead, a lamp is placed on a stand where it gives light to everyone in the house so that people can get direction and they don't stumble. As I have indicated, the DPF is a relatively young institution, that is the DPF Uganda. Nevertheless, in a few years of its existence as a legal entity, a number of achievements have been posted. I will enumerate a few of them. One is we conducted extensive research to support the revision of the deposit insurance limit from Uganda shillings 3 million to Uganda shillings 10 million. At this insurance limit, 98% of the total deposit accounts in the banking sector will be fully insured, especially the unsophisticated ones. We drafted the regulations to operationalize the provisions related to Deposit Protection Fund contained in the Financial Institutions Act 2004 as amended. We initiated a single customer view project which requires depositors to be verified using national identity cards. We commenced public awareness campaigns throughout the country. We grew the fund from 485 billion as at June 2017 to approximately 650 million by the end of June 2019. DPF was appointed to take charge of the IADI Africa Regional Committee Secretariat, and that's why we're here right now. We engaged closely with key strategic partners. The signing of Memorandum of Understanding with the Kenya Deposit Insurance Corporation, which will be tomorrow, is a testimony of such strategic alliances. These are just a few that I can mention, other than the internal structures that we have formed, the governance committees, and many others putting policies in place to ensure that the operation of the fund is smooth, because we are still in the transition arrangement. The fund has been able to achieve these milestones because of the unwavering support from the strategic partners. These include the Ministry of Finance, Planning and Economic Development, and we update the minister on a quarterly basis about the progress, and he has been very supportive in operationalizing the fund. Bank of Uganda. Without Bank of Uganda, maybe we would not be where we are right now. because they started the process. They got the operation or the operation guidelines, and they did most of the groundwork. Over and above, they seconded staff to the fund, as I told you yesterday, 11 of them, from the CEO to the last person. And we are very grateful to you, Mr. Governor. The World Bank, if I don't mention World Bank, I don't know what I would do. Rosen, we are very grateful, very grateful. We are grateful to IADI and the deposit insurance agencies of Nigeria, who have guided us along the journey. Kenya, Alias Mahmoud has been very energetic and he has guided us in a way. Zimbabwe, these three countries have helped us, and we roughly know where we are going because their testimonies and their experiences have guided us to be what we are. The role of deposit insurance in contributing enhanced public confidence in the financial sector cannot be overemphasized. One of the major ways this is achieved is by making sure the public is well informed about the benefits of deposit protection. Increased public awareness about deposits protection will no doubt boost savings in the formal financial sector and provide more funds for financial intermediation. It is in this regard that I appeal to all the contributing institutions to play an active role in sensitizing depositors and the general public about the benefits of deposit insurance. I will be telling you, according to the law, like I listen to advertisements, or this institution is regulated by Bank of Uganda. We will also request you, especially when you're advertising and display or so on the public notices, that your deposits are protected by the Deposit Insurance Fund of Uganda. On a later note, we have planned a number of recreational activities during the conference. I encourage all participants to actively participate, not only for health purposes, but in order to network more effectively. I'm sure there is a good gym, there are good nature walks around, but above all, we have one of the most beautiful golf courses in the country, very near, 3 minutes walk, I think, from here, and you have a good round of golf, as long as you don't fall in the water. If you don't know how to swim, well, maybe we'll give you a floater. Ladies and gentlemen, with these few remarks, I once again welcome you to this conference and wish you fruitful deliberations. I thank you for listening to me. Thank you very much. Now, with these remarks, I call upon my governor to come and give his remarks. Maybe, with your permission, Honorable Minister, maybe he could do it there next to you. Is that okay? Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much.
Honorable Minister of Finance, Planning and Economic Development, Honorable Matia Kasaija, the board chairman and members of the board of the Deposit Protection Fund of Uganda, the Secretary General of the International Association of Deposit Insurers, the representative of the Auditor General, members of the board and chief executive officers of the deposit insurance agencies, members of the board and chief executive officers of financial institutions, distinguished guests and delegates, ladies and gentlemen, good morning to you all. I wish you all a very warm welcome, especially to the participants who have traveled from abroad to Uganda and to this splendid resort at Chigo, right next to Lake Victoria. Thank you all for honoring our invitations to the first conference by the African Regional Committee of the International Association of Deposit Insurers hosted in Uganda. I must say that the theme of this conference, why deposit insurance, was very well chosen, as it points attention to a key component of the financial system safety net, which is meant to promote financial stability. Fundamentally, deposit insurance exists to protect the banking system against the risk of bank runs. That is, unrestrained demand for cash by savers, which can cripple financial intermediation process, disrupt the payment system, and constrain the performance of the financial sector. In the normal course of events, healthy banks are encouraged to lend the deposits that are entrusted to them in a process called financial intermediation, where banks make savings available for investment and economic development activities. However, when banks face difficulties and become unable to service their obligations as they fall due, their creditors, including depositors, risk suffering ruinous losses. By relying on customer deposits that can be withdrawn at little or no notice, banks are exposed to the risk of a run on deposits as panic-stricken customers seek to take out their funds quickly before the bank becomes insolvent, as they fear. In order to mitigate the risks of bank runs, as well as protect the depositors' interests, deposit insurance systems are established to guarantee the nominal value and liquidity of deposits up to a certain size, funded with premiums paid by the institutions whose deposits are insured. Deposit insurance protects depositors, gives them comfort that their funds are not too much at risk, and ensures the viability of the banking system. In Uganda, the need for effective deposit insurance was exposed during the resolution of several local banks that failed during the late 1990s and early 2000s. Indeed, the Bank of Uganda has recently been the subject of a parliamentary probe seeking final closure of the numerous issues and contested claims that arose out of the associated receivership and liquidation processes of the closed banks. Notably, the depositors of those failed banks were fully compensated, for the most part, using taxpayers' funds, as the government ought to preserve public confidence in the banking system. As the government sought to preserve public confidence in the banking system. Needless to say that such implicit deposit insurance by the government imposed an unanticipated financial burden on the limited fiscal space. Seeking to bolster financial sector soundness, several reforms were undertaken in the banking system. These reforms included, but were not limited to, 1, tightening banking laws and regulations designed to constrain undue bank risk-taking and inappropriate insider dealings. 2, upgrading bank supervision and examination systems. 3, providing liquidity through the central bank to prevent bank illiquidity problems from turning into insolvencies. And lastly, intervening in order to resolve failing banks. Of specific relevance was the introduction of a deposit insurance scheme that was initially operated within the Bank of Uganda. An effective insurance deposit scheme is expected to yield faster, smoother, and more predictable resolutions of failing banks, not least because it allows predetermined rules of the game rather than using discretionary and ad hoc measures. And it stands to reason to say that a more rule-based deposit insurance scheme operates best when it is autonomous. Therefore, in 2016, the Financial Institutions Act 2004 was amended to provide for the establishment of an autonomous deposit protection fund, among other reforms. Another vital reform worth highlighting here is the recent increase of the deposit insurance threshold to 10 million shillings from only 3 million shillings previously. The higher threshold is likely to enable the public to enhance public confidence and encourage greater customer deposits, thereby expanding the funds available for financial intermediation by the banking sector. Larger pools of deposits would reduce the cost of loanable funds for banks, as well as spur credit expansion and ultimately support faster economic growth. At this point, it is necessary to address any concerns about the safety of deposits that exceed the insurer's threshold of 10 million. The protection of large uninsured deposits of failing banks will continue to take place through various forms, including a purchase and assumption transaction in which all the deposits, insured and uninsured, of the failing banks are transferred to another bank. A financially assisted merger of the failing bank with another bank, or the provision of financial assistance to the failing bank to avert its failure, as happens during statutory takeover by the bank regulator, who is the Bank of Uganda. Mindful of the risk that deposit insurance would take, mindful of the risk that deposit insurance would stoke moral hazard through encouraging banks to take greater risks, I want to assure you that the Bank of Uganda is committed to the effective supervision of banks, the bank's risk-taking, with particular attention to the quality and types of assets that banks acquire, as well as the amount of capital that banks hold relative to their risks they take. In addition to risk-based micro-prudential supervision, the Bank of Uganda also undertakes macro-prudential regulation and supervision to ensure the stability of the entire system including stress testing to ensure that the sector is resilient to a number of shocks. Effective deposit insurance can contribute to financial stability only with strong bank regulation and supervision in place. Deposit insurance is no substitute for effective regulation and supervision of banks. Through a risk-based supervision framework, the Bank of Uganda is committed to spotting problems well before insolvency occurs and compelling banks to take prompt and preemptive corrective action. As I come to the end of my remarks, I must stress the need for the Nascent Deposit Protection Fund of Uganda as an autonomous institution to prove its credibility and fitness for purpose before it gets tested in a period of difficulty. Sorry. The Deposit Protection Fund must be well funded, capably staffed, and should maintain the support of the central bank as well as that of the government as partners in ensuring the stability of the financial system. The DPF must also maintain strong links with regional and international peers so as to learn from the diversity of experiences and to maintain international best practices. I look forward to working with the DPF, as it plays its role within the African Regional Committee of the International Association of Deposit Insurers by contributing to the stability and financial systems through international cooperation and maintaining such a virtuous network as has gathered here for this conference. It is now my distinct privilege and honor to invite the Honorable Minister of Finance to address this audience. Thank you for listening to me.
The Governor, Bank of Uganda, the board chairman and the board members of the Deposit Protection Fund of Uganda, the General Secretary General of the International Association of Deposit Insurers, delegates from IADI member countries and associates, distinguished invited guests, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Good morning. Sorry I came a little bit late because my program, somebody gave me a wrong program that I would be addressing this meeting at 10 o'clock. If it wasn't for him to continue ringing me, I definitely was intending to be at 10 o'clock, so I'm very sorry for coming late. But here we are. I'm delighted to join you this morning to officially open the first ever Deposit Insurance Conference to be held in Uganda. Ugandans, you should clap for yourselves. I thank the International Association of Deposit Insurance for trusting Uganda with the responsibility of hosting this historic international event. I note that there are over 27 African countries represented in this conference. Am I right? Over 27 African countries represented in this conference. Am I right? Yes. Very good. Let's see them, those who are not Ugandans. Put up your hands so that I can see. Clap for them. You are most welcome. Ladies and gentlemen, not long ago, during the global financial crisis, a mere panic led to a run on banks, which left more than 20 large banking houses bankrupt or stopping payment to depositors and creditors. The crisis quickly spread to and some other parts of the world. In the United States, it started as a crisis in the subprime mortgage market and developed into a full-blown international banking crisis with the collapse of investment bank like Lehman Brothers, and followed by a global economic downturn. What are we saying? We have to be very careful. The financial sector is a very sensitive animal. You touch it wrongly. If you have seen what happens to, there's an insect which we touch and then it follows, what do you call it? Or it changes its color. It's a chameleon. You know a chameleon. You touch it, it changes the color. But there's another insect, I'm trying to remember the local name. You touch it, it folds. So the financial sector, in my humble language, it's already what? A millipede. A millipede. A millipede is like that. If you're not careful and you don't touch it well, it will disappoint you. So that's why we have come with this idea of the Deposit Protection Fund, which I officially launched 1 week, 2 days, a week ago, last Tuesday, which I formally launched last Tuesday as we were preparing to receive you. It is therefore important that we strengthen our supervisory measures by central banks over the financial sector, but also uphold the deposit insurance funds to play a great role in financial sector safety net, so as to promote and propel financial stability. Ladies and gentlemen, as the African Regional Committee of the International Association of Deposit Insurers gathers here today, we need to start drawing regional specific frameworks that will promote development and stability of our financial sector to support our development goals. I am informed that this conference will place emphasis on issues related to the mandate of deposit insurance agencies, as well as the most appropriate governance structures that contribute to enhancing public confidence in the financial system, which is in line with the core principle 2 and 3 on deposit insurance issued by the International Association of Deposit Insurers. In 2016, the government of Uganda took a strategic decision to create the Deposit Protection Fund as a legal entity with its own board and management, as the chairman has said. This was provided for in our law called the Financial Institution Act 2004, which we amended recently, which was amended in 2016. And was in line with international best practices on deposit insurance. I therefore urge all the deposit protection entities present here to be at the forefront of supporting establishment of clear policies, procedures, and robust IT systems which ensure timely resolution or problems in financial institutions with minimal disruption to financial sector stability. I was telling the IADI, they came to see me and the whole board, and they let me use this opportunity to say it. The Deposit Insurance Protection Fund is not widely known in Uganda. It's not widely known in Uganda. As we told you, I launched them on Tuesday. I insisted, I said, you are doing a good job, you have a noble mission, but the country does not know you, does not understand what you are doing. So we decided to put a press conference, and we launched massively in the press last Tuesday. But you know, human beings, we have our own problems. First of all, at my age, I have come to learn two things. Human beings quickly forget. They quickly forget. That's why Jesus, who came 2,000 years ago, he came with beautiful messages for mankind, including Muhammad himself and others. How quickly we forget about these things. That's why priests and preachers every Sunday they say, come, 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 to remind you. That's one point. The old ones will forget. The young ones who did not know, they don't know unless they are told. So what I'm trying to say, please, you people who are in charge of this sub-sector, speak, 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 explain. Every occasion you have, speak. Every occasion you have, put in the press until the Deposit Protection Fund becomes a household language. And show the good thing for you or the bad thing for the country and the depositors. We have had several casualties. We have several casualties in our banking sector here. I don't know, Fred, since you were the Minister of Finance before I was there, I don't know how many banks have we forwarded? About 5, 6? How many? Governor, do you remember how many banks have forwarded? Since NRM came to power. That's what I understand. That's what I understand best. Now visitors NRM is the ruling party here. How many? 7. You see, we have had 7 casualties. Where? The governor is speaking, so he's the authority. And others had already been. So how many casualties since 1986? 3. Okay, so. Now the former banker supervisor is being disputed by her governor. So you reconcile, but the truth of the matter is that definitely there have been casualties. I can mention them, some of them I knew, some of them I had an account. Yeah, like Greenland, I don't know. Kigundu's bank was called what? Greenland. Yes, I had an account there, so I know what I'm talking about. Even the one of Kato, ICB. I had also an account, so I know I suffered. I'm one of the victims. I'm one of the victims. So, people have had experience and they have lost. Tefe, I think Tefe was the worst case, if I'm not mistaken. Tefe was the worst case. Many of the depositors, Fred, am I right? Many of the depositors did not get anything back. Although government had to come in through the treasury to ensure that really people don't lose confidence in the entire system. Because the other day when I was launching, I would express our own sins here. You visitors, forgive us if we express our sins in front of you. Some Ugandans don't want to take their money in the bank. They want to keep it under the mattress. They want to keep it in little pots. They want to keep it in sufurias. A sufuria is a pan. Then with the cover, then they dig a little hole, either in the house or outside the house, and they keep their money there. They are there. We have people like that. There's no question about that. So that's why I'm saying, please, this fund, you really must speak, you must explain for us to discourage people from not being in the banking system. I also encourage our African counterparts jurisdictions who have not established deposit insurance agencies to study and adopt deposit insurance entities in your respective countries. The decision to establish a deposit insurance agency will not only strengthen financial stability, but also will also go a long way in building a more resilient African banking sector. As I conclude, when all is done and you have finished your responsibilities that have basically brought you here, I want to introduce a step. You are visitors who have come. Don't leave Kampala before you move around in the sea. The only problem we will suffer from traffic jams, but I'm sure the organizers can help. Governor, you will help them to navigate through the traffic jams of Kampala. We are trying to work hard to reduce them, but it will take a while. What is they should never go to? They must go and see the source of the Nile. Our visitors, how many of you have been at the source of the Nile? Only one, you see? So please, those who have never seen where the Nile comes from, one of the longest rivers in the world, please, and it's only 50 miles from here, go and see where the Nile begins from. Of course, I would also wanted you to go to other beautiful places of Uganda, the sceneries. You know, Uganda, we are at the equator. We are at the equator, but we also have snow. Can you imagine? Those of you who don't understand what the equator means, when we are at the equator, at midday the sun is right up here. And we have 12 hours of sunshine and 12 hours, generally speaking, of darkness. But in Uganda, God placed things here in a manner that is really wonderful. We have snow. You go to one mountain, there is snow up there. And we enjoy 9 months of rain in a year. We are surrounded by water. About 26% of Uganda is water. Talk about animals. We have all species of wildlife in this country, from giraffes to elephants to buffaloes to bushbucks, and the famous, the gorilla. You know that thing, people talk about it quite often. There's some animal called a gorilla. It just looks like a human being. The only difference is that it cannot talk like we are talking. It can eat with the hand. It can ask you. It can shake your hand. And that's why people say we, I think, transformed from those animals. That's for the scientists to say. So really, in a serious note, I encourage you to take off time from your busy schedules. As the chairman was saying, there's a golf course here. Take time and enjoy yourselves, relax, and enjoy the hospitality of Uganda. Such that one explorer, one British man, whom you must know, he said, Uganda is the pearl of Africa. And there is really truth in that. I'm not trying to, you might say, this man is overselling the country. I'm not overselling it. The truth is there. It's a beautiful country. We messed it up politically sometime, but now, over the 30 years, we have put up things right. There is peace. You can travel in Uganda from south to north, from east to west, either at night, at any time of the night, or at any time of the day. Nobody will stop you, except if you commit a traffic offense, then the police will do like this, and you stop. If you have committed the offense, then you pay a fine, and you continue. So, That's what it is. We are an island of peace, as you know. We are trying to help our brothers and sisters surrounding us to be as peaceful, so that we have a region that is totally peaceful and ready for investment. This other thing that I want to ask you, when you go back to your countries, ask your business people to come and invest here. Money is safe here, everything is safe, and we operate an open economy. You bring your money here, you come into your business, make your profit. Tomorrow you say you are fed up, you take away your money. Nobody, with no quarrel. That's how we are operating business here. For the good of the country and for those who are living in this country and those who come to visit us. It's therefore my great pleasure to declare the first ever International Association of Deposit Insurance African Region Committee Conference officially opened, and wishing you fruitful celebration. Thank you. Now, I would have loved to stay and hear what you have to say, but today, unfortunately, is what we call Cabinet Day. So all ministers must go to attend that meeting with the president, deliberate on the issues of the country. So this is one of the issues I will report in Cabinet that I have launched to you, and you're doing very well. But we will be ready to hear to receive your report and recommendations that you think are appropriate for us to move forward. Thank you very much.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Charity insists that Prince should introduce himself properly. So, my name is Agatise Erediawa. And because people forget easily, Julia started this whole trend. So everybody just calls Prince for short. But generally, whatever you call me, I will answer. I'm under deposit protection here. The chairman of ARC, Alhaji Umaru Ibrahim, was to have arrived yesterday. But late on Friday, he received a message from the presidency in Nigeria, and his attention was required at a meeting which you hold today at 4 p.m. Nigerian time. And again, this meeting has to do with financial system issues in Nigeria. Of course, the central bank and the Nigeria Deposit Insurance Corporation are very, very vital to any such discussion in Nigeria, just as I believe it is here also in Uganda and other jurisdictions. So we do expect him, and I believe that has been accommodated in the slight changes to the program. However, I've been mandated to deliver his welcome address this morning. There is a prepared speech which makes my job very, very easy, because the shoes I was asked to fill were actually a bit big for me. So now with the prepared speech, I can say I did as I was told, and I will not be held responsible. I will go straight to the speech, and if Mr. Governor will permit, let me stand on existing protocol, please. Thank you very much. And this is Umaru Ibrahim speaking. I am profoundly pleased to address you in my capacity as the chairman of IADI ARC on this important occasion of the 2019 edition of the IADI Africa Regional Committee meeting and annual conference with the theme, Why Deposit Insurance, taking place here in Kampala, Uganda. Let me join Mr. Patrick Kagoro, Chairman, DPF Board of Directors, in welcoming all participants and appreciating their presence at this August conference of the ARC. Mr. Walker David, the Secretary General of IADI, has been very, very supportive to ARC's course and progress, and has virtually been present and contributed to all ARC meetings since he assumed office. I believe he deserves a round of applause, please. I personally would like to acknowledge the presence of the Minister of Finance, Planning and Economic Development of Uganda, Mr. Kasaija, and also Professor Mutebile, distinguished governor of the Bank of Uganda. I would also like to thank the governor of the Bank of Uganda on behalf of the ARC for his tremendous support in making this event a reality. This meeting would not have had the prospect of success without the presence of all the invitees here present. I think we invitees deserve a round of applause as well. My special regards also go to Auditor General of Uganda, board members, and chief executive officers and representatives of sister deposit insurance agencies, board members, and chief executive officers of contributing institutions. Now, you are all indeed welcome to Kampala. I thank you all for making it to this year's annual conference. The theme of this year's ARC conference, Why Deposit Insurance, is germane to the key essence of financial system stability and its implications for economic growth and development of the African continent. The pockets of bank failures on the continent in recent times show that threats to financial system stability are yet to be fully resolved. Hence, deposit insurance, as part of financial safety net arrangements, will continue to offer protection to depositors and promote stability of the financial system. I would like to acknowledge the efforts of the ARC and IADI in this regard. It pleases me to remind you that the Africa Regional Committee of IADI has, in the past 1 year, stepped up its efforts in capacity building. For instance, NDIC has hosted about 6 study visits for staff of deposit insurers from Ghana, Kenya, and Uganda, amongst others, since 2018. Also, NDIC is coordinating the forthcoming Knowledge Sharing Forum for deliberation on DIS issues at the Malaysia Africa Open House. In addition, NDIC had proposed to the regional committee members to establish a Center for Studies of Deposit Insurance System in Africa. The NDIC will be providing the secretariat, while other regional committee members will assist in providing technical and financial support to the center. To further enhance international collaboration and sharing of information between IADI, ARC member countries, NDIC sponsored the development of the ARC website. The website has been ready, and member countries are to supply relevant information to be uploaded onto the site. At this point, I want to assure David Walker that there will not be a conflict. I'm sure at some point we will get to that, but please, David, rest assured. In the same vein, NDIC engaged consultants to develop an ARC logo for the site, again, with no conflict of interest. A total of 14 logos were created and shared among the countries for selection of the best 3. At this event, a decision will hopefully be taken by all members on the logo to be chosen for the website. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I am pleased to intimate you on the committee's efforts to further foster collaboration among deposit insurers across the globe, especially within the IADI membership. NDIC recently signed Memoranda of Understanding with the Korea Deposit Insurance Corporation and the Central Deposit Insurance Corporation of Taiwan. These were on the 7th and 12th of August this year, respectively. Interestingly, Ghana has also signed an MOU with the FDIC on capacity development. The MOU will undoubtedly promote communication and enhance existing levels of cooperation, as well as provide mutual understanding and collaboration on areas related to the development of the deposit insurance systems in their respective jurisdictions. Furthermore, there have been positive developments in DIS operations in Africa. Kenya recently reviewed its DIS strategic plan, and this has led to introduction of risk-based premium assessment in that jurisdiction. In Uganda, as we have been told, the coverage level was increased recently from $800 to $2,700. And this has achieved 98% coverage level. I'm sure David will be very, very happy about that. The methodology, I'm sure, was very, very well worked out, and 98% coverage for accounts is almost as best as you can get. In Nigeria, we have 94%. The DPF, interestingly, has achieved one of the essential ingredients of deposit insurance. That is going into an MOU with the Bank of Uganda on borrowing requirements. Mr. Governor, sir, we have to give you kudos for that. And Julia is happy also that in the event of a systemic crisis, she will not have to worry herself. She will just turn to you. So, Julia, congratulations also. Tanzania also is proposing the review to enhance compliance with the core principles of deposit insurance. Rwanda is also in the process of establishing laws that will bridge identified gaps in its DIS framework. It has also begun the process of automated premium assessment. Is also jointly assessing risk minimization with the NDIC in extending deposit insurance to mobile money operators. And there are guidelines that have been issued in that regard. As the minister mentioned, I caught two things from the minister's speech, and we all did. Broadly speaking, public awareness and financial inclusion. I think, his speech really touched effectively on those two concerns. So in Nigeria, we are promoting a lot of that, and I think along the line there will be more spoken to in that regard. Now, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, notwithstanding these efforts, DIS still has some miles ahead to cover. The role of DIS in prudential supervision needs to be strengthened the more so as to minimize the incidence of bank failures that will have disruptive effects on the financial system. The emergence of new financial technologies, fintech, that continue to revolutionize the financial system terrain requires that adequate regulatory framework is put in place to contain and optimize their effects on financial system stability. The DIS and other financial safety net participants need to cooperate on this and other areas of joint interest to ensure that there is adequate prudential, regulatory, and supervisory framework to cope with and efficiently manage developments that affect the financial system at all times. On this note, distinguished participants, on behalf of the ARC and DPF, I would like to thank all of you for coming in to be a part of this event. I wish all of us fruitful and insightful deliberations. Thank you very much for listening. Charity, over to you.
And let me say it's an honor and a privilege, excuse me a minute, for me to be here today. And this is the first IADI Africa Regional Committee meeting and annual conference held in Uganda. And I would especially like to thank the minister, although he has departed, but also the governor, Bank of Uganda. I'd like to thank Mr. Patrick Kagoro, chairman of the Uganda DPF, and of course, Prince and Umaru from the Nigerian Deposit Insurance Corporation for their leadership of the IADI Africa Regional Committee. And of course, Julia, for CEO of the DPF Uganda. As many people have commented since the beginning of the morning, the purpose of this conference is to explore why we have deposit insurance and what is its role in contributing to financial stability and how can we improve that. But I think this is also a wonderful opportunity to share African and global experiences on building more effective deposit insurance systems. We've heard of all the progress that's being made by the members in the Africa region, but there are other areas of the world as well where we can share this knowledge, our expertise, and our personal experiences in helping us improve our systems. I'm going to refer back to a historical date that has been mentioned before by some of the speakers. That's 2007, the beginning of the global financial crisis. We have many financial crises in the world, unfortunately, but this was one of the biggest ones. It was one of the worst ones we experienced in modern history. And it has fundamentally reshaped the way a lot of countries look at financial regulation, supervision, and safety nets. Because one of the things that came out of that crisis was the critical role of deposit insurance. And it was interesting because deposit insurance came out as a supporting player in the safety net before in crises, usually with smaller and medium-sized institutions. But people saw the way even in a global financial crisis where there was systemic bank problems, the supporting role deposit insurance played. As the academic George Kaufman used to say, deposit insurance kept the retail depositors off the street. And that's a critical step even in dealing with a wholesale banking crisis and these other issues. So this was just this fundamental role of stability everywhere in the system that you saw with deposit insurance. And that is really, really critical. And that is critical in terms of it's not just minimizing retail deposit insurer runs, but deposit insurance frameworks help build an orderly resolution framework in countries. It allows a nation to have an orderly exit of a problem bank while keeping the system stable. And that improves the competitiveness of the financial system and its efficiency. So there are many, many advantages to deposit insurance other than just promoting public confidence. It helps the system in so many ways in promoting financial stability. Since 2007 as well, the number of deposit insurance systems has increased significantly. In 2007, there were around 92 deposit insurance systems operating in the world. There are now, according to our estimates, about 145 systems. 91 of them are IADI members, but we have a number who are considering joining. So we would like, in the future, as IADI, to have every deposit insurance system in the world part of our membership, because that will build strength and expertise and experience. The growing recognition of the important role in financial stability played by deposit insurance has also led to calls for more guidance, more standards. In 2002, when IADI came into being, we really didn't have any guidance, official guidance on deposit insurance. There were no core principles, there were no really well-accepted standards on deposit insurance. So in 2009, IADI began working with the Basel Committee and using the Basel Committee on Banking Supervision's core principles on bank supervision as a model, and we developed IADI's core principles for effective deposit insurance systems. And one of the really good things when we developed the core principles was we developed them with a very large steering committee and working group. It was 26 jurisdictions, because we wanted to make sure that the core principles promote high standards, but they also are adaptable to the wide variety of deposit insurance systems around the world. So in those that work in supervision and regulation, there's this word proportionality. And they try to proportion out or make some of the existing standards flexible. We built in proportionality right into the core principles. So that's one of the areas that's made it, I think, very adaptable and helpful in a lot of different countries. Compliance with the core principles has become a key strategic priority for IADI, and our Africa Regional Committee has been leading the charge in that area. Conferences like this, self-assessment programs that IADI is promoting, try to help all our members try to achieve the standards and the core principles. But as I said, there's different ways of achieving those standards, and that's one of the advantages in these meetings and fora where we can discuss this. Well, we've made great progress. Also, the world is always changing as well, and change is probably the only constant we have. Deposit insurance systems are evolving, they're changing, just as the banking and the financial system is changing. And so some of the areas that we're looking at are fintech, cryptocurrencies, open banking. These are some of the issues that are coming up. We're facing them right now, but they're coming up more and more in the future that are going to challenge us as depositor insurers. And how do we maintain good protection for depositors in a world where we're having different types of financial institutions come into play, offering different types of products where there can be confusion, and they may have different stability impacts. So a key area in Africa is always digital stored value products. When I'm at the BIS, we often have meetings on fintech and digital finance, and they tend to focus on payment systems and on the lending side. And we have to keep reminding them that on the deposit-taking side, there's a revolution going on. Not so much in the developing countries, but here in Africa and emerging markets, banking on your phone, digital stored value products. Most of our members are now insuring these. They're becoming the main savings vehicle in a lot of countries, and it's very digital. And there are opportunities and risks in that we need to explore. In this conference, I'm really looking forward to all of the interesting presentations, the thought-provoking discussions I'm sure are going to ensue. And I think that will help us anticipate and manage these types of risks as we go forward and think about new and innovative ways to deal with this. And I'd also like to mention that, well, this is the first time that I've been in Uganda. I've been looking forward to coming to Uganda for a long time. I've been lucky to be around East Africa, South Africa, about 10 or 11 African countries. And I think Africa is critical in deposit insurance because in IADI, Africa is our fastest growing region. When I first came to Africa in 2007, there were only about 7 deposit insurance systems. And now we have 29 jurisdictions that are members of deposit insurance system. And that shows, the development of deposit insurance, but also the rapid development of the economic and banking systems in Africa. So deposit insurance is critical in supporting not only the financial system, the development of banking, but also economic development and financial inclusion as well. So that means that as deposit insurers, we have a great responsibility. We really are stewards of the financial system and stewards of financial stability. And our job is to ensure the depositors have confidence in their deposits, in their banks, and in their deposit insurance and financial systems. And with that, I'd like to thank you.
Thank you, Charity, Director Communications, Bank of Uganda, for this morning session. We are still in the morning, and we are suggesting that we start the session that was meant to begin the afternoon, since we still have some time. It's a suggestion for which we need your consent. So is it okay? Oh, thank you so much. As they arrange here, the next session in your booklets will be moderated by Ms. Julia Oyet, who is the CEO of the Deposit Protection Fund of Uganda. That's historic. It's in history that she's the very first CEO of the Deposit Protection Fund. So she'll be coming and she'll be introducing to us the speaker as well as the subject to be discussed. In the meantime, we want to believe that you're having a great time in Uganda, especially for our foreign visitors. In case there is anything you want us to improve or to assist you with, feel free to contact us all at the registration desk outside. We have been informed of the different recreational activities around this place, so feel free to register for any. There's a golf course, wonderful over there. There's swimming, there's gym, there's lawn tennis, and other sports activities. Please feel free to register so that you participate in these activities. As they say, work without play makes a certain boy, I don't want to mention his name, quite dull. So please take advantage of these activities so that we are able to remain fit. So I take this opportunity to invite Julia, the CEO, to come and invite the speaker and introduce us the next session. Julia, most welcome.
Thank you very much, Felix, and thank you, Charity, for really taking charge of the first session of this event. I'd like to thank all of you for being here and being attentive. And in his absentia, I'd like to really thank the governor for taking time to be at this conference. My duty is very simple. It's to introduce the next subject, which is an overview of deposit insurance and IADI. David Walker has already talked us through some of the aspects of deposit insurance, but now he's going to take us a little bit deeper into this area. When we look at the title of this conference and it says, "Why Deposit Insurance?" it looks like the answer is one, but I can assure you the answer is large. It will take days if we're to delve deep into that topic, but he is going to give us an overview which will really be sufficient, especially for our colleagues who are hearing about deposit insurance for the first time. In addition to that, we have heard about IADI, the International Association of Deposit Insurers, and I think we need to know what IADI is exactly, who owns it, does it have a shareholder, who owns IADI, how was it created, what was the ideology behind its creation. If I want to join IADI, how do I do it? If I'm joining, do I have to be a member, or can I be an associate, or are there other categories of people who would like to be part of IADI? What does it take to be an IADI member? Do I have to pay anything? Is it a free service? And if it's not a free service, what do I benefit? So to take us through that aspect of this conference is David Walker. He has already been introduced to you, but I will do it again. David is our Secretary General of IADI. He's responsible for providing leadership in the development and execution of IADI's business plans. He has vast experience in deposit insurance, bank resolution, financial regulation, and economics. David worked with the Financial Stability Board to develop the now famous key attributes of a resolution. He holds an MBA and an MA in International Economics from McGill University, Canada, and those of you who are aware, this is one of the top universities in Canada. So that is the breed or the brand of people that are heading IADI. And it shows that they're actually effective because, as he has described, the members are really growing, and we hope to grow the numbers even more. So without wasting more time, please join me in welcoming David Walker, the Secretary General of IADI, to deliver his speech.
Okay. Really, in this presentation, I wanted to talk about the background and the rationale for deposit insurance, why we have it, what are its benefits, and also what are its challenges. I'd also like to talk about deposit insurance around the world, and in particular in Africa, some of the trends we've been seeing, some of the attributes of deposit insurance systems. I'd also like to talk, as Julia said, about IADI, who we are and what we do, and what are some of the benefits of being an IADI member. We were asked to talk about some of the two themes in the conference, which is Core Principles 2, where we talk about mandate and powers, and also the governance framework of deposit insurers, because these are really two critical things that you need to get right because they underpin the whole deposit insurance system. And then we'll end with just a selection of some of the sort of key trends and developments in deposit insurance and some of the emerging issues that we face as insurers. These are also issues that the financial systems face. So it's always good to end a lecture with a bit of discussion about the future. Okay, maybe we'll move to that very first question. Is there a clicker? Okay. So this is the sort of basic question. A lot of people have spoken about this throughout the day. Deposit insurance, what is it? It's a system established to protect depositors against the loss of their insured deposits in the event that a bank is unable to meet its obligations. It's a very academic type of a description, but basically we protect insured depositors' funds in the event of a bank failure. There are a number of advantages. The very first one is financial consumer protection. The idea in deposit insurance is we don't want to protect all depositors, but we want to protect the depositors that are less sophisticated, retail depositors, smaller scale depositors, people who don't have access to a lot of information about banks or maybe the time or ability to assess it. But the idea in deposit insurance is we want to leave exposed to market discipline the big depositors, those people that have the education, the background, or can pay people to look after their risks. So the focus is narrow, but important, because the vast majority of depositors are what we would call unsophisticated or less sophisticated depositors. Confidence and stability. Depositors are far less likely to run if they know their banks are insured and they are insured in the event of a failure. Whenever there is a bank problem, there will always be some outflow of deposits, but if you can keep the core retail deposits within the bank, that is a really significant factor in working towards a good resolution. As I said earlier, deposit insurance allows for the orderly resolution of a bank. In countries that don't have deposit insurance, you're faced with a very difficult dilemma when there's a bank failure. What do you do? If you let the bank fail, then you're going to have major repercussions on confidence and stability, possibly contagion in the system. But if you don't have a deposit insurance system, it forces you into a world where you're thinking or contemplating about bailouts and taxpayer money. Deposit insurance and the framework it has gives you alternatives, and it gives you that middle area. And in deposit insurance systems where you have a multitude of resolution powers, mergers, acquisition, financial assistance, that gives you even more leeway in the system. The fourth is greater certainty. Again, people talk about countries that have deposit insurance or they don't have deposit insurance. We've always sort of looked at it, everybody has deposit insurance. It's either explicit, and everybody knows the rules, or it's implicit, because very few countries allow depositors to incur major losses. They bail them out. So one of the arguments for deposit insurance we make is that having a clear system where you limit the coverage, you limit the guarantee, is far better than having uncertainty and ambiguity, particularly amongst depositors. It builds confidence in the system, and it allows the authorities to close banks, to impose losses on some classes of creditors, but still keep the system stable. So those are sort of the key advantages of a deposit insurance system. Next slide. Here we talk about the limitations of deposit. Oh, sorry, one slide back. Yeah. But deposit insurance isn't without its risks, its limitations. One of them is that deposit insurance by itself is not a be-all and end-all in terms of a systemic banking crisis. It plays a role in helping, but it shouldn't be thought of as a cure for a systemic banking crisis. That's a system issue. It's a problem for the government, for the central bank, for the supervisor, and that requires collective action. So it's important not to have the objectives of deposit insurance too wide. And also, deposit insurance to be effective, we call them preconditions. You can have a wonderfully designed deposit insurance system that meets a lot of the good design features in the core principles, but if you're working in a legal system where you can't close banks or you don't have effective supervision, then it will not be a very successful deposit insurance system. So it's important to get the supporting framework for deposit insurance well done. Moral hazard. A lot of people criticize deposit insurance by saying it creates moral hazard, just like any guarantee system. I think that you have to look at that in a variety of contexts. And I prepared a bunch of slides on this, but I think it's probably best to just chat about it. Any financial system, supervisory or safety net system, is going to have an element of moral hazard in it. The minute you set up a bank supervisor, there'll be expectations about what happens when a bank fails. So moral hazard is something that's throughout a financial system, but there's ways you can deal with it. Maybe advance 2 slides, please. Yeah. And one of the areas of ways that you can deal with moral hazard is by having a well-designed supervisory system and elements of a deposit insurance system. When I say supervisory system, a system that's designed for good supervision and regulation of banks, a good accounting and transparency system and a legal framework, but also elements of deposit insurance in the design features, deposit insurers that have effective coverage, deposit insurers that have a good pricing mechanism. These are all ways that you can mitigate these issues of moral hazard. And I think when you look at the design features of the Uganda system, you see many of those are in place or being planned. And that's really one of the key ways of dealing with this moral hazard problem. So with that said, I think we've demonstrated there are many benefits of deposit insurance. There are some drawbacks, but these can be corrected with the right types of incentives and design systems. And so these are some of the reasons why you see this chart here, which is the growth and development of deposit insurance systems around the world. We tried to track this. We started out in 1933 with the first deposit insurance system that to this day is still operating, the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation in the US, which was initiated in the Great Depression. There were not that many systems that came into development for the first few years after that, but in the post-war era we saw this sort of rapid development. And it's kind of sad to see it, but it's usually crisis-driven. Most systems try to avoid deposit insurance when the system is stable. Whenever there's a crisis, it becomes apparent, and we've seen this sort of rapid growth, as you can see here. The African region in particular was relatively slow to start, but we've seen quite a big increase post-2008 in systems. So Africa now has 29 jurisdictions with systems operating in it, and is, as you can see, one of the most rapidly growing ones. Europe, actually, it was in the mid-90s they began to have a lot of deposit insurance systems because of the EU directives. But prior to that, they had a small number of systems and they were generally private. So this, I think, is a dramatic reflection of the importance of deposit insurance and why it's grown and why some of those issues have come up. So I'm just going to maybe advance a couple of slides after this. Next slide, please. Yeah, let's look a bit about deposit insurance systems around the world and what are some of the key attributes of those. IADI has done a, next slide please. IADI did a survey. We do an annual survey every year. Many of you contribute to that. This is from the survey from 2018, just to kind of show you some of the major elements we see. The majority of deposit insurance systems are legislated and administered by the public sector. We do have some private deposit insurance schemes, but their numbers as a proportion are declining. The vast majority of deposit insurers are legally independent entities. We've heard some of the speakers talk about the importance of operational independence, and that has really helped when you have a separate legal identity for an insurer. In terms of mandates, and that's a key theme of this conference, about 32% of deposit insurers are what you would call paybox deposit insurers. They have a very simple mandate to make payouts in the event of a bank failure. But there are deposit insurers that have additional powers, such as purchase and assumption, facilitating other types of financial transactions, and we call these paybox deposit insurers. And they've now become a pretty big category. For about 40% of deposit insurers are in this area. And the last group is we call loss or risk minimizing deposit insurers. And they tend to have wider mandates in terms of bank resolution. And in some cases, in some very large systems like the FDIC, they actually conduct bank supervision. And so they're the least common, but in certain types of countries, they've come to be one of the most effective ways of providing deposit insurance. This chart, I think, really illustrates some of the growth and development. Probably the biggest has been this movement from paybox systems to paybox plus deposit insurance systems. A lot of that actually was initiated in the last financial crisis because authorities found it was useful to have a deposit insurer, if they were already good at doing a payout, to also help them do other types of transactions. Typically in a bank failure, you try to avoid closing the bank and doing a payout if you can. A purchase and assumption, if you can find an acquirer, is often a better solution. It is often, not always, but a lower cost and less disruptive to the system. So these have been the fastest growing area. But we've also seen a gradual increase in the roles for loss and risk minimizers. And interesting enough, in some systems in the world, they've given the deposit insurer responsibilities for systemic bank resolution, such as in countries like the US, Canada, Mexico, and I think in the Africa region, Kenya and Nigeria have a major role in systemic bank resolution. So Again, deposit insurance mandates, they develop and they evolve over time, and I think this illustrates it quite well. Next slide. Membership. For virtually all the deposit insurance systems, it's mandatory. For all deposit-taking institutions, typically they're banks, but they can be cooperatives and credit unions. And we've seen a growing number of these deposit insurance systems join IADI. Coverage limits really range incredibly all around the world, from below 1,000 to, in some cases, blanket guarantees. But the average, according to our survey, is around $75,000 US, but I think you have to be careful with coming up with these arbitrary numbers just for coverage. It's country specific. Coverage is very country specific. Funding. The vast majority of systems now are pre-funded, and this is, I think, a major advantage in development. 20 years ago, only about half of the systems had funds. They relied instead on sort of going around after banks had failed and collecting from the remaining banks. But I think the advantages of pre-funded systems are very clear, and this is something, and I know within the legislation for the DPF here, but a challenge a lot of insurers have is fund adequacy. How big a fund do I need? How do I calculate that? And that's an area where we work a lot with our members on. Next slide. This just again shows you the diversity in coverage limits. Some of the largest ones, these are just selected G20 countries, or the US. The US effectively more than doubled its coverage limit in the financial crisis. Before that it was around 100,000, but so they're actually an outlier on the high side. Australia went from having no explicit coverage to one of the highest in the world, again driven by the crisis in 2008. And then as we move down, we see the Europeans around 100,000 euros, and then at some of the other countries. But if we look at the Africa region, the next slide, please. And again, this shows some of the coverage limits in here, and we see one of the higher ones is the Central African Economic and Monetary Community. WAMU is also quite high. But we've seen just with this recent developments in Uganda with raising the coverage limit that Uganda is now one of the jurisdictions with a higher coverage rate. And I think these are important for a number of reasons. When we talk about aims in coverage, we want to make sure the vast majority of individual deposit accounts are covered. Whether that 80, 90, that can be quite a high number, and that gets the majority of your population. But when it comes to the value of deposits, you still want to make sure that the majority of the value in the system is exposed to market discipline. And maybe the next slide will show what I mean by that. Yeah, and this shows that in the ARC, for instance, when we looked at all the countries, the proportion of depositors covered was very, very high, over 90%. But the value was relatively low, below 10%. And what, of course, this shows you is that most people have relatively small deposits. And the big deposits are corporate deposits, very wealthy individuals. And what that, I think, I try to use this illustrates that here's a way where you protect most of the people, but you still have market discipline in your system. They are exposed to loss. And that is where you get most of the market discipline, and the policing for moral hazard comes from that area. So these are, I think, some of the more graphic illustration of that. When you look at the totals around the world, you see it's a bit different. And this is, you get a lot of the developing countries in there. But even in the developing countries, a country like Canada or the US, you still have the majority of the depositors who are exposed. And also in the more highly developed markets, funding isn't just deposits, it's wholesale funding. And they tend to be highly exposed to market discipline. So hence, this balancing act in deposit insurance between protection and also ensuring market efficiency and concern for moral hazard. Okay, next slide. Another subject is depositor reimbursement. We have 16 core principles. This is the most important one, I think. It's a key core function of every deposit insurance system. When we look at this role, 85% of depositors is their primary role. There's a number of other powers, as we mentioned before. But I think the key thing is to get the insured funds in the depositor's hands as quickly as you possibly can. 7 working days is the IADI target. It's also the EU's target. It's ambitious. We think about it, maybe 50% of our respondents were able to do this within 7 working days. Many of our respondents needed quite a bit longer to do it. And also we always say, saying you can do a payout in 7 working days is a bit of a misnomer. To do that is actually you need to have all the systems and practices way in advance. You know, as you heard Prince say, talking about the importance of a lot of members doing single customer view, developing a single customer view model really helps you achieve this 7-day working payout. The IADI core principles recognize this. It's the target, but the core principles can also determine compliance if people have a plan to do so. Sometimes it's going to take years to develop a system, but it's important to have those plans in place. So that's something we've always been trying to promote at IADI, particularly with the help of some of our members who can do 7-day payouts, is helping our other members in how do you build the systems and practices and getting that critical information to do so. Next slide.